Hey everybody, it's Tony Robbins. Listen, for the last 2 years of my life, I've been obsessed with finding answers on what's happening in regenerative medicine that can really transform the quality of people's health. I've been working on a new book called Life Force, and I've been doing it with my partner, Dr. Peter Diamandis, and also Dr. Bob Hariri, who's kind of one of the fathers of cell therapy and just a brilliant man. And we've been looking, we've had more than 18 researchers going full force, looking for anything that's cutting edge and anything that could democratize the best healthcare. Because many of you know that in order to get the best healthcare, very often that's done, by somebody who's wealthy, and we want to bring it to that place. And all of a sudden, Peter, one of the companies Peter went and did some research on, he came back more passionate about than anything else we've been working on. And this is a company that has the ability to use synthetic peptides to create vaccines, and they've been doing it for 30 plus years. But they've done it in areas that are doing it now, like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, and people who have, genetically high cholesterol. But what was really interesting is this 30-year-old company, about 3 months ago, they did a spin-out called COVAX to work specifically on the COVID-19 issues. And what I was really fascinated by, and there's a large population of people out there that are concerned about all these vaccines that we're rushing to, and some are to manipulate DNA and mRNA, and that's extremely concerning to people. Another one is using live virus, and there's a lot of people out don't want to put live virus in their body. They're worried about the biohazard in the world, much less the biohazard in their body. And the idea that there could be something that now is in preclinical trials is 300 to 400% more effective in not only creating antibodies, but also antibodies that destroy the virus is pretty damn exciting. And so I asked Peter if we could pull together the founders of that company and do a brief interview here to bring you what is the cutting edge right now. And so I'll have you be aware of what's coming to look out for your family or for your business. I mean, we have to come up with a solution for this pandemic. And as you know, we're already expecting those second waves, and businesses and people's lives are being so disrupted. So this should be a really great brief session that can show you what might be available to you soon so you can do your own homework and see what's available. So I'd like to start, before we introduce the founders of COVAX, with my partner, Dr. Peter Diamandis. And Peter, would you kind of cue up a little bit of how this has come about? Maybe introduce, if you would, Lou and Maymay.
Sure. So Tony, I appreciate your time today. I've gotten to know Lou Reese and Maymay Hu, who are here with me today as the co-founders and co-CEOs of the company we're talking about, COVAX. A parent company called United Biomedical is an incredible story, a 30-year-old company, one of the leading manufacturers of vaccines around the planet. UBI incredibly currently manufactures 500 million doses per year, 4.5 billion doses in animal health of the same exact vaccine platform. Talk about that.
Yeah, so UBI is the parent company of COVAX, and it's probably the oldest biotech company that you've never heard of. We cut our teeth in antibody testing and then developing vaccines, and we basically develop, manufacture them, and we've historically had third parties distribute them. But we've developed this synthetic peptide vaccine platform over the last 2 decades. We commercialized the first ever fully synthetic peptide vaccine against an infectious disease, and then next against an endogenous protein. And what that means is, we never touch the virus. We're completely no biohazard risk. So we currently manufacture and vaccinate, against some of the most virulent infections. And we manufacture this in the middle of Shanghai City. So very rare, and it just kind of shows the safety of our platform. And as you mentioned, Peter, right now we manufacture 500 million doses a year. We've commercialized over 4.5 billion, so we know how to do it. We know how to scale up. We know how to deliver vaccines. And we can do it for under $1 a dose. So it's based on this platform that we've leveraged and now decided to basically apply it to COVID-19. And we're really excited about the results that we have so far that we're taking into humans.
So Tony, when I think about this, to have an effective vaccine, because we're reading a lot about vaccines out there in the media, and the question is, will I get it? Will it work? Is it safe? All of that. There's sort of 5 attributes that I think about that are critical. Number one, when you inject the vaccine into your body, it's got to be immunogenic, meaning it needs to actually generate a lot of antibodies. Number 2, those antibodies need to be neutralizing, meaning they need to go and attack the virus and knock it out. Number 3, it's got to be safe in humans, and that's a big concern people have. Is this vaccine actually safe to put into humans? Number 4, because this is a pandemic mostly of the elderly, it needs to be effective in the elderly. A lot of vaccines are not. And then finally, it's got to be manufacturable. And so for me, I'd love us to talk about that, because those are the check boxes that any vaccine that's going to get to the first 100 million doses out into the public, which is the goal of COVAX, have to meet those 5 objectives.
Well, let me ask you then, Mei, clarify, what does immunogenic really mean? We're talking about being able to generate enough antibodies. Give us some clarity, if you would.
Yeah, so one of the first screens that we do when we design a vaccine is say, we want the vaccine to be able to stimulate the immune system to generate antibody. So they want to generate protection. We're the first multi-tope vaccine out there. So most vaccines will go after one target. We actually take multiple targets to basically enhance and broaden our immunogenicity. So in our initial studies, what we found was, we took 30 constructs, we weeded them down until the best one, and we have these titers, which is code for antibodies, that are over 1 million. Just by comparison, that's several hundred-fold, multiple orders of magnitude higher than some of the next vaccines.
And Ma'am, if I could ask you a question, you talk about a multi-tope vaccine. Can you explain what that means and what other vaccines are doing?
Yeah, so most vaccines out there are targeting one target called the spike protein. So it's like the nose on the head of the vaccine. And that's a very rational target. But what natural bodies actually do is that when they look at a virus, they actually are stimulated by multiple parts of it. So we're the first multi-tope, which not only go after the nose, but other parts of the virus. So we go after the ear, the eye, and that basically enhances. It kind of mimics more about what our natural body's response is. So we're one of the first ones, and we think that actually will confer broader protection.
And so when you talk about immunogenic, then there's also how effective are those antibodies? In other words, do they actually, kill the virus? What kind of statistics, what are you guys finding in preclinical trials in animals right now? What kind of numbers are you seeing, both in the numbers of antibodies that are being generated, but even more importantly, their ability to destroy the virus, I should say?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Tony. So one of the most important things is, yes, you can generate antibodies, but are these antibodies functional? Can they neutralize the virus? So we took our vaccinated serum and we sent them out to 2 independent labs. And these are labs where BSL-3 facilities where they isolate the virus from a patient and they, put it in the lab and they basically test it against our serum. And what we're able to find is we have neutralization capabilities of over 32,000. Just to put into perspective, that's about 200 times higher than the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine. So these are, as some of our scientific advisors would say, this is blow your socks off good. It's very impressive.
Would you mention a few? I know there's 3 that I've read, and I got a chance to meet 2 of them, but tell a little background on who your advisors, the scientific advisors, and their background, if you would.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We are very blessed to have an awesome slate of advisors. They include, George Sieber, who was the former chief scientific officer of Wyeth Vaccines. He's noted to have developed and commercialized over 6 vaccines, including FluMist. There's a guy named Dr. Tom Moneth. He used to be the chief scientific officer of Acambis. He's worked on the Ebola vaccine with Merck, the smallpox vaccine. He's kind of a legend in infectious diseases. And then there's a guy named Dr. Wayne Koff, who's currently the CEO of the Human Vaccines Project, and more recently, before that, the chief scientific officer of IAVI, which is the International AIDS Initiative, Vaccine Initiative. So these guys are kind of vaccine legends. They've been in the business for over 30 years. They've commercialized vaccines. They understand the immune system. And we wanted to bring them on to get an objective perspective. And they're all extremely excited about what we're developing.
One of our advisors also, and I say I because I've invested in the company so everybody knows, because I was blown away by seeing these results and I've been looking for answers and I want to be part of the solution. But one of them also, doesn't he advise the CIA and has worked on pandemics as well? Which one is that?
So Dr. Tom Moneth was the advisor to the CIA and also ran a biodefense and pandemic fund for Kleiner Perkins. So he's been in the pandemic space for multiple decades now. And he's kind of the go-to guy when you talk about things that can create havoc in the world. So he's done dengue, smallpox, Ebola, everything that we see in the movies like Contagion and just don't want to get out.
And what have been the responses? Because I've talked to myself, but I'd love to hear from you. What have been their responses to what they've seen? Why do they come on board?
So I think they're unbelievably impressed, not just by the platform. First, they're impressed by the data that we've generated. So when they look at the neutralization and the antibody titers, They're very impressed by that. But what they really love on top of that is the fact that it's manufacturable, it's scalable. That's going to be one of the key points here. We're able to scale, and we've proven it, and they really like that as part of this, higher probability of success. Every vaccine is going to have clinical efficacy as a risk. COVAX isn't unique in that, but for COVAX, that's basically the only risk. We know how to manufacture. We do it every year. It's not theoretical. We do it right now. So, we're trying to eliminate that risk, and that's why we believe that even though we're not the first to clinic, we'll be the first to have a roadmap to actually deliver 100 million vaccines to patients.
That's very exciting. Well, you've proven the effectiveness, at least in preclinical. Hopefully that will work with humans. It seems to be more effective than anything else that's out there that at least we have the scientific evidence on. But let's talk about safety, because that was the third thing you talked about, Peter. Tell us, maybe Lou, you can jump in on this if you want. Let us know, what have you found about the safety so far, and how can you have at least a positive expectation about safety? It has to be proven with humans, but I know there's a track record that gives you guys confidence.
Yeah, so we're excited about the safety. One of the hallmarks of our platform across all 4 of our human trials and other indications, and those are often in aged people that are ill, it's extremely safe. And one of the reasons why we've been able to dominate the animal health vaccine market is because our platform has been safer than the other traditional vaccine platforms. So traditional vaccines are grown, they take the virus, the actual virus, the thing that makes you sick, and they grow it in eggs, millions and millions of eggs, tray upon tray of eggs in giant warehouses. Or if they're super fancy vaccines, they grow them in E. coli, which is that stuff that makes you horribly sick from romaine lettuce. Right, and they grow it in these petri dishes, rows and rows and trays on these giant machines, and they grow the viruses in there, and then they take it out and they beat it up and they inject it into you. And your body has a response to that. That, by definition, has a biohazard risk both to you, but more importantly for the manufacturing process itself, there's a large biohazard risk associated with that. That means that if it's contaminated, the whole batch gets thrown away. That means that if it's contaminated, the whole batch is contaminated for every person that receives it. There's lots of risks associated with that. We've seen that happen over and over and over again historically. One of the things that's differentiated, or the thing that differentiates us, is that we're fully synthetic. There's no live virus, there's no beat up virus, there's no virus of any kind. And because it's fully synthetic, it's safer. And we've seen that in the animals, in billions of animals, billions and billions of animals. And now we've seen it in humans in 4 trials. So we're extremely confident about the safety. That's the underlying premise of the platform.
I mean, one of the hallmarks of our platform, like Lou was mentioning, is its safety. One of the reasons is that we're able to really specifically turn on the immune system just against the targets. So whereas traditional vaccines, in order to bolster the immune system, they have to activate lots of parts of it. So 99% of the immune response actually goes off target, and only 1% goes to where you actually want it to go. In multiple trials, as Lou mentioned, we have 4 clinical trials completed in humans. What we've seen over and over again is 99% of the immune response that we generate is targeted towards where we want it to go. Whereas less than 1% is off target. That is just a brand new world in terms of safety.
It's like a laser. When you say these human trials, you're talking the ones related to Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, are those the ones you're speaking of?
You're right, Tony. A sister company to COVAX, which is using the same platform, the same technology. You think about the same machinery, just a different tip, has been focused on Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, migraines, hypercholesteremia. And those 4 human clinical trials have demonstrated effectively a near perfect safety record. There's been minor adverse events, but nothing significant that we're concerned about. So we have a high degree of confidence that this platform is innately safe in humans, which a lot of the other vaccines don't yet have.
And when you talk about manufacturing and speed to manufacture, forget even distribution, we'll get to that in a few minutes. I want to talk about the elderly with safety in a moment and effectiveness. But before we do that, there is a difference also in what you have to build. Isn't an average, as I was doing the research, $1 billion to build a factory? I know we already have factories, but $1 billion because of the number of chickens and eggs. And what's the difference? Can you give us maybe a metaphorical difference of what it's like to mix synthetic peptides to provide that laser-like response in the immune system, as opposed to building a factory that traditionally is being done that are using live virus as an example?
I mean, reality is that this is chemistry to mimic biology. And as a consequence, it's as simple as mixing paint. So when you're mixing chemicals, you can do it at scale. It's highly replicable, which means that you don't have bad batches. And it's highly scalable in a smaller area and at a much lower cost. So to put it in perspective, we can build plants for approximately a tenth as much and deliver a larger number of annual doses.
That's awesome. Let's just talk for a second about the manufacturing aspect of this and the distribution, because one of the things when I was doing my own research about, mRNA, let's say, for example, Moderna is a great company. They got brilliant minds, but the question I have is they've never really put something out where you've made that manipulation. I worry about the safety myself, but the big question is, how are you going to take that to Africa when you have to put it in nitrogen? Don't you have to keep it frozen? Tell us what the competitors have to do versus what you can do, because in the end, even though we have an answer, it only works if we can get it to the largest population, the people that really need it. And that's another concern that I have when we talk about rushing a vaccine. It's just not getting a vaccine proven, it's getting it to the people that need it, true?
Yeah, no, as we further progress all these vaccines and we think about how we're actually going to commercialize, new problems exist. So that's why actually having a commercially proven platform matters so much. So we deliver our vaccines, over 500 million, to animals
Per year.
So we know that the infrastructure, the cold chain, it exists. With other newer technologies, some of them, like Moderna's, there are others, require things that haven't been commercialized, and so we're not quite sure that the infrastructure is there. So, for instance, there is one example, a minus 80-degree storage requirement. So we're not quite sure. I don't think anyone's quite sure how they're going to deliver that from the manufacturing site. Maybe they can get it to a warehouse, but how do you deliver the last yards from warehouse to the actual patient? Much less 100 million, much less to developing countries like in Africa. So that is a challenge that is still to be met, and not quite sure how it's going to fold.
How soon will you be going into human trials, because you've been doing preclinical and animal trials, and where are you going to do that? And I understand the location in Nebraska that the DoD uses and that the President's, the POTUS office uses, is the place that you're considering doing this, or have they already accepted you? Can you clarify both when you're going into human trials and some of the organizations that are part of this besides Taiwan? Because I understood, is Taiwan not paying 90% of your human trials? Is what I'd heard. I want to make sure that that's accurate.
Yeah, no, we have a very close relationship with the Taiwan CDE, and so we're on a rolling review, and our plan is to actually go into humans later this month. And they're going to help sponsor the phase 1 and the phase 2 trials there. Concurrently, we're actually doing trials in the US. We're doing a parallel trial. So we're doing a phase 1 with the University of Nebraska Medical Center, which is also the home of the National Quarantine Center and the Global Center for Health Security. These are the same guys that the Teddy Roosevelt captains came into, where the Diamond Princess cruise ship guys came into. These guys, saved the world. This is where if anyone in the U.S. has a question about it, they pick up a hotline, and it's University of Nebraska.
A wider known fact is that if you watch the movie Contagion or Outbreak, they're the guys in the suits that deal with the end of the world.
Yes, the Department and the Department of Defense goes to them, correct? And as well as the presidential's office to make those types of decisions.
It is basically the national
They're the
reference
highest
lab.
standard in the U.S. at this stage, I guess.
It is. It serves the
Absolutely.
White House, the Department of Defense, the Pentagon. Like you said, this is the gold standard, and we're unbelievably blessed because they did the remdesivir trial, so that was the first treatment trial in the U.S., and they selected us as their vaccine trial. So
and they also did your testing. Are they not your exclusive partner for testing as well?
yeah, they tested. They did a wide screen of all the antibody tests out there, and they chose us as their exclusive serology partner, mainly because we're the most accurate test out there. So
that's a pretty amazing combination. And what is your timing for having a vaccine? If human trials go when is when, and then how far from then do you gear up to get a larger number of doses as well, if you might clarify?
So our goal is to have 100 million vaccines available for distribution by the end of this year or very early first quarter of next year. And from there, we can scale up. We can scale up in the United States in our factory. If we start right now, in the next 9 to 12 months, that'll be fully operational and producing 500 million plus vaccines a year. And in our additional facilities in Taiwan, we can produce another 500 million to a billion next year, depending on capacities and depending on the speed with which we ramp it up.
Okay, so somewhere between $500 million and $1.5 billion, depending upon how quickly you can ramp up, how things go with the human trials as well. How long will the human trials go then for you to be able to make that decision? Because it sounds like you have the speed of manufacturing is amazing because you're using the synthetic peptide kind of. I think the metaphor you gave was like mixing paint, if I remember, as opposed to having to grow it and go through it. But when will you know the truth about the human trials in order to perhaps have it by the end of the year or the first quarter of next year to have a vaccine that's approved and ready to go?
So, we're beginning manufacturing now, Tony. A lot of this stuff, this is a crisis, this is a true pandemic, and so we're doing many things in parallel. So as we're going into human trials, we're actually ramping up for commercial manufacturing. That's how we're going to be delivering 100 million doses, by end of first quarter. So this is a parallel process where time is our enemy, and we just don't have time to waste.
But we are entering human trials in August, 60 days to get data back from the beginning of the phase 1. We'll enter a phase 2.
Phase 1 is safety, right, Peter? Just so everybody understands.
Yeah, so phase 1 is safety. Phase 2 is limited efficacy. Does it work? Phase 3 is an expanded safety and efficacy. And one of the things we're in discussions right now in some testing that would be outside the US, outside Taiwan, is an expanded phase 2, phase 3 to be able to get to approval as soon as possible. I think one of the things that is important is it's not going to be a winner-take-all situation in the vaccines. There are going to be a number of vaccines that are approved and go into the marketplace. We believe we've got the manufacturing, the safety, the platform to be one of those leaders. One that I think is also the ability to be demonetized, because it's going to be insane for the first year as people are bidding up the price of the vaccines and people are making a grab for themselves, their elderly parents, their children, and so forth. So how do we do that in ethical and a logical fashion is important. How do we do it safely? So I'm proud of the team here, what they've been able to build. I mean, we are on a mission. You know this. You live your life on a mission as well. It's 24/7, and it's extraordinarily involved in this.
And the other vaccines that you guys have begun to generate or begun to test around Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, genetically high cholesterol and so forth. What blew me away, and the reason I got excited with the company and personally decided to invest even then, was that you have a situation there where the cost per vaccine on those vaccines wasn't it $1 or less, and you still are extremely profitable?
Yeah, so in our animal health space, we make 500 million to 600 million vaccines a year, and they're sold for less than $1 a dose, and we have 70% margins. So in the human space, the extrapolation is not exactly dollar for dollar, but very similar.
Maybe, I know you're announcing your preclinical science data later this week. I saw a summary chart. Could you maybe walk through that so we can just have people see what the data is really showing, if you're willing to now?
Yeah, absolutely. Can we put up the slide? Awesome. So this is basically a summary of the data that we just shared based on the immunogenicity, how many antibody titers can you generate, how neutralizing they are, and how manufacturable, right? And it's a comparison against the other leading vaccines that are in the field, that are in the clinic right now. So as you can see, the row anti-spike titers, that's how many antibodies we generate. So we're over 1 million. We're at the top of the range that's even detectable. You can see it across the line. Where we stand out tremendously is neutralizing antibodies. So we're over 32,000 in comparison to, for instance, AstraZeneca's, which is about 40, Inovio's, which is in the hundreds. These are other vaccines that are currently in the clinic. So if you just go down the line, you can see that we're hitting the box. We're hitting the efficacy box. We're a commercially proven platform. We know how to manufacture. So that's why we're super excited and believe that we're in an unbelievable position to be able to deliver this to patients.
It's pretty extraordinary. And I just want to thank you for what you're doing here. I think we're going to have to wait for the science of what happens on the human trials. And as you said, you won't be the only one in the marketplace. Obviously, there's going to be plenty of other manufacturers. But the idea that you could be first, be safe, and truly cost effective and deliver to the places that need it most, because I think in the end, one of the things besides not having the biohazard live vaccine is this idea that you can actually get the distribution to those that need it, and those that need it in countries where they don't have the kind of infrastructure. To me, those are the reasons I was pulled into and wanted to do this interview with you both. Is there anything we've left out that we should cover before we sign off? Because I think this is going to intrigue people and hopefully get people to go do their own education and study what's out there and what they might want to be considering for themselves going forward.
I mean, it might be worth mentioning, quite frankly, we all know COVID is going to mutate at some stage.
Yeah, you're bringing up what I was going to bring up. Exactly. I think so many people are concerned about that right now. There's evidence it's already occurring in some cases.
And so all we've got to say is, put us in, coach. Let's go fix it.
Tony, thank you so much.
I really want to thank you, all three of you. You're extraordinary. We're all going to be watching what you're doing and praying for great progress. It sounds like there's been extraordinary progress already. But boy, if we can get this done by the end of the year, that would be such a gift to humanity, not just to individuals, but to all of you. And wish you the best and look forward to going on a journey with you as one of your investors, but really just want to get people to be educated to what's possible. And I really thank you for taking the time today for all three of you. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Lou. Thank you, May May.
Thanks so
Thanks,
much,
Tony.
Tony. Really appreciate it.
Take care, Tony.
Blessings.
Stay safe.